In the quiet resort of Elenite, on Bulgaria's Black Sea coast, rain began to fall early in the morning. At first, it was only a drizzle over the sea and the hills beyond, but within hours the sky darkened, the wind grew stronger, and water began to pour down in thick, relentless sheets. By midday, the peaceful resort turned into a raging torrent. Streets disappeared, cars floated, people screamed from windows. The Black Sea swallowed everything that reached its edge. The storm had hit suddenly and brutally. Between 200 and 250 liters of rain per square meter fell in a short span, more than what usually falls in weeks. The ground could not hold it. The drains overflowed. The ravines that cut through the town filled up and exploded into rivers. Water surged down roads and through courtyards, carrying with it mud, rocks, and pieces of buildings. What had been a resort for tourists now looked like a battlefield. In the chaos, tragedy struck. Interior Minister Daniel Medov confirmed the first death, a man trapped in a basement when the floodwaters burst through. Later, the news grew worse. 2 rescuers who rushed to help others were swept away. One was a border police officer, the other a tractor driver who had volunteered. They were among the first to arrive and the first to fall. The water kept rising, hotels were flooded, cars were dragged into the sea. The main street in Elenite turned into a brown swirling river. Tourists tried to climb onto rooftops. Others waited in darkness as power lines snapped and electricity went out across the resort. Rescue teams were stretched thin. Fire brigades from nearby Pomori and Nesebar raced in, their trucks battling through knee-deep water. 10 fire engines were deployed across the region. Divers and amphibious vehicles came from Varna. Even the army joined the effort, sending 2 Navy boats to search for trapped residents. In one hotel, 3 Polish tourists were rescued from their flooded rooms. 6 women were pulled to safety from submerged buildings. But the work was slow. Roads were blocked by mud and debris. Many areas were still unreachable. Teams could only move when the current eased. Authorities warned that heavy rain could continue for another 24 hours, and more floods could follow. By Friday evening, officials declared a partial state of emergency across the Burgas region. Electricity was cut off to prevent further hazards. Public transport was suspended. The government held an emergency session to coordinate the rescue. Helicopters hovered over the coast as the Defense Ministry announced it was ready to send more forces if needed.
Посмотрите, что происходит. Там не только наши, а что тут делать?
Then came more grim news. A 4th body was found, a 58-year-old woman buried under mud in her home. Her husband, who had returned from Russia, reported her missing. Police said she likely died when the floodwaters tore through their house. As rescue crews searched for more victims, questions began to surface. Environmental groups had been warning for years that Bulgaria's Black Sea coast was being overdeveloped. Hotels, roads, and complexes built on land that once absorbed floodwater. Many of these structures stood directly in old riverbeds and dry ravines. When the storm hit, those ravines became death traps. The environment minister ordered an immediate inquiry into whether the buildings had been legally approved and whether construction rules had been followed. Officials noted that there is no such thing as a dry ravine. Every one of them can turn into a river when the rains come. Yet over time, they had been paved, built over, or filled with foundations. Local activists were blunt. They blamed years of neglect and corruption that allowed developers to ignore safety zones. They said nature had given its warning many times, but nobody listened. Now the result was in front of everyone: streets destroyed, families missing, lives lost. The scene in Elenite was heartbreaking. Cars lay overturned in the sand. Entire sections of walls had been ripped away. Furniture floated in pools of mud. Debris from kiosks and playgrounds littered the beach. The sea itself turned brown from the dirt washed down from the mountains. Volunteer groups began arriving from nearby towns to help with evacuation and debris removal. Some locals expressed frustration that official aid had been slow to reach them, but even the professionals were overwhelmed. One rescuer described the situation as a maze of flooded streets and collapsing structures, where every move was a risk.
Ребята, второй этаж уже пошел. Стекло рушится. Что делать? Ребята, спасайте, пожалуйста.
Meanwhile, other parts of Bulgaria were facing their own crisis. Heavy rainfall and snow hit the northwestern regions, closing mountain passes and cutting power to villages. The National Railway Company reported train delays and fallen trees damaging power lines. It was as if the entire country was under siege from the weather. Across the Balkans, similar chaos unfolded. Serbia and Bosnia were buried under early snow. Power lines snapped, towns lost electricity, and roads turned impassable. Experts said extreme weather was becoming more frequent, linking it to rising global temperatures. Just weeks earlier, the same region had seen heat waves above 40 degrees Celsius. Now it was drowning and freezing at once. By dawn, the scale of destruction was clear. The water had receded in some streets, leaving behind piles of debris and twisted metal. Shops were gutted, hotel lobbies were filled with mud. Locals stood outside their homes in disbelief. For them, the flood was more than a natural disaster. It was a warning of what years of reckless building and neglect could cause. Authorities promised full investigations and tighter rules on construction. But for the families who lost loved ones, promises offered little comfort. They had watched the sea turn violent, the rain turn deadly, and the land beneath them collapse. The tragedy at Bulgaria's Black Sea resort was more than a story of nature's fury. It was a reminder of how fragile life along the coast had become. When the flood came, it didn't care about resorts or reputations. It simply followed the paths humans had forgotten, the ancient riverbeds that once carried rain safely to the sea. As the cleanup began, the people of Elenite faced a long road ahead. Streets would be rebuilt, hotels repaired. But for those who saw the flood take everything, the memory of that day when the sky opened and the sea rose would never fade. That's all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more clear and calm reports on extreme weather events. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Please note that some footage in this video is for illustrative purposes and may not depict the exact events described. Thank you for watching and stay safe.